actually, with that in mind, if you want some more stuff for me to just talk about real quickly, um, before we jump into, what your look should be in ZVP and ZVT, I'm not going to touch on ZVZ too much yet,
Right.
but, okay, so in response to your huge sort of essay that you sent me,
Yeah.
I'll try and touch on
I'll
some
be
things.
honest, like the bottom half of it, I've abandoned a lot of that at this point. So
Oh no, that's
that's
fine.
just me. That was
Yeah.
just some Hydra build I was trying to work on to see if I could get it to work. It kind of can work with the ZVP, I think, but not so much ZVT at all.
Okay. Well, if I'm harping on something and you have something to say, just let me know. Just stop.
Yeah, I'll shut up now.
Okay, so no worries. Okay, so the Icy Cup ladder, just a small tidbit of information, was actually a functional ladder in Starcraft. That's where all the competitive Starcraft players played.
Right.
So players like Idra and Rhett and Liquid Tyler and all these guys, they all come from Icy Cup. They're all competitive Starcraft 1 players. So a lot of the sort of theory behind this game that the top players employ comes from things that happen on the Icy Cup ladder and things that happen in Brood War. So it's kind of a little bit of a history lesson in how Brood War developed. If you watch Day 9, do you watch Day 9 at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That.
I mean, the majority of my games when I do play ladder is when I'm not messing around with AI or custom. Is like what was I about to say? Gotta get my thought train together for a second. Train of thought. Like the majority of games that I play tend to be like, I mean, a lot of high platinum players. Obviously, I get the occasional like the highest I think I've played on the ladder is probably around like 1,500 diamond players, which is kind of subjective since it's been recently figured out that even in the diamond leagues, the different divisions are varying levels of skill, so the points makes it harder to judge where the person's really at. But I mean, lately I actually think on ladder play mostly just diamond people, but
Okay.
I
Well,
mean that's basically all I have to judge off of it so far.
Well, you can also look at yourself in a vacuum, like we were saying with the versus AI games.
Yeah.
And when I did see you play against players, you were spiking up. Your money was getting pretty high fairly
Yeah.
early, which is the first sign of, at like the 5-6 minute mark.
I'm doing some right now. Sorry,
Sorry?
1 second.
Okay.
Yeah, go away. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, you say this is related probably to bad times and proxy hatcheries. By that you mean expansions, right?
I don't know. Oh, I don't. Oh, I think when I was thinking of proxy hatcheries, I was thinking of like you get onto like say 3 bases, and then like if your money starts to climb, basically sometimes because I think you can run into that block where you just don't have enough larvae to produce.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, now my money's starting to get higher. I'm on like 3 bases. Maybe I should drop a 4th in base hatchery in my natural or my main or something like that to just ramp up production. I tend to not know when to drop one of those type of things. I know not everybody does it. Some people just try and expand, but I know in different cases, just expanding can be a good way to go or a bad way to go depending on your level of map control. Because obviously, you have really good map control, you can just expand everywhere and who cares. But if you're lacking map control for one reason or another, something like that might be more useful. And that's something I tend to not know. Like, I think a lot of times I just forget to do it. Like, I'll get so engrossed with everything that's going on that I'll just not notice my money climbing and get slow on, like grabbing a 4th or dropping an extra hatch for production or something like that. And then I'll see like I'm at like 1,400. I'll be like, oh shit, I need to drop something to ramp this up a little bit.
Right. Often that is a product of just not paying attention to what you have. Like, if you, like, in one game, for example, you had 2 evolution chambers, neither of which were upgrading anything, your, like,
Yeah.
your tech was behind, your upgrades could have been out faster, and then you wouldn't have that surplus, so you wouldn't need you're calling it proxy hatch.
I guess what I was, just to pause you for 1 second, I guess what I was saying when it came to macro, like, I'm generally at the beginning of the game not bad about, like, expanding in bases and drones, but like as far as macro like upgrades and stuff like that I do tend to struggle with. That I do know for sure.
Okay, well, what we're going to be looking at are timings and then keeping your money low.
Right.
Because you want to be as good as humanly possible, but I'm noticing you're not playing with the necessary speed to really move to the next level. So
okay,
for me, I see, like, in my mind, number 1 obstacle is mechanics.
Right.
You have to get your your hand speed up there, your keyboard speed up there. Number 2 problem is timings and knowing correct timings, correct builds.
Right.
Just knowing when your layer comes up, that kind of thing. I see a lot of flaws in your early game. And then once you've got solid mechanics and you're getting into the mid game well, then we can start working on like, okay, what's a good unit composition? Because you're kind of jumping gun a little bit. You're saying I want to make hydras, I want to make.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been messing with some of that stuff, but I know a lot of my earlier game mechanics are flawed. But seeing as I was struggling with when the timings are, it was hard for me to analyze exactly what parts of my mechanics were flawed because I wasn't 100% sure myself when to time things. So it's well, am I not macroing hard enough, or am I not upgrading fast enough, or am I grabbing this too early or that too early, that type of thing.
And that's what my job is. So
yes,
I will get that worked out for you. And then you can start getting into a lot of cool stuff in the mid game. And I could talk about that. In fact, you did send me one replay I think that is kind of educationally valuable, which is the Zerg vs Terran on Zelnaga, which we can look at some mid game concepts in that near the end of the lesson, just because you're gonna get sick of the work we're gonna do in mechanics. It's not fun. It sucks. It's like the the analogy of like the kid who knows everything about football, knows all the plays.
Yeah.
But he's like a skinny little 110 pound,
Yeah.
Go to the gym, hit the gym, then you can employ all those,
Oh yeah.
So that's what you gotta do. You gotta hit the gym. You gotta get your mechanics up there. Okay, so moving on. You say you want to improve your gameplay. Okay, you say that you're scared to ladder. Now that
well, I shouldn't say so much scared as I get is like I'll start to ladder and then I'll drop like 2 or 3 games in a row. And I'll be like, oh, and I get away from this for a second. Then I'll get caught up doing something else, and then I won't, wait like an hour and come right back to it. I'll be like, crap, and then I'll start doing something else, and then I won't end up laddering for like the rest of the day or something like that because I dropped those 2 or 3 games in a row.
Right. Okay, so for me, when I'm scared to ladder, it's because I feel like I don't have a purpose. I feel like I'm gonna go into this game, and it's gonna be a guy, and I'm gonna sit there and go like, well, what do I do? And even if I win, it won't feel good because I sort of was just doing stuff haphazardly, and I won.
Right. That's how it kind of feels for me after I drop 2 or 3 games in a row. I feel like, okay, what the hell am I doing? That I'm getting my ass beat. Now I feel a little lost. I better stop laddering because I feel lost right now. I feel like I'm gonna screw stuff up.
Exactly, and that's where the principle of practicing with purpose comes in.
Right.
The idea that every time you go into a game, you have a clearly defined goal. And I'll give you just a random and short example of this. Let's say you want to 6-pool all matches, all maps, everything.
Right.
At least, and some people will do that and say, oh, it's just 6-pool, there's no depth to it. But you could 6-pool every game and have a clear, defined goal of I want to get an expansion up at this time. I want to. So then every game you're working on your micro of your Zerglings while you're macroing in your base, blah, blah, blah. So same thing here. We want to have the right build for you. Your goal is to get to the mid game.
Right.
And then, now that you have that criteria, you can then evaluate your replays all based on that. You gotta have it in your head first, so practicing with purpose. You won't be scared to ladder, or like you won't feel apprehensive laddering or stuck. And then I'm gonna sort of disregard all this stuff about 14 extractor, 13, 14 pools, because I don't think that's
that's solid metagame crap.
Yeah, and also when you do that and you say, okay, well, I'm scared of X, so I'm gonna do Y, just in case he does X. That's always a bad way to think.
Yeah,
really.
No, I agree.
So let's get rid of that. I'm just gonna throw out what I think you should be doing in ZVP and ZVT. Do you have problems getting pylon blocked? Because I know a lot of people do.
It depends. It kind of varies back and forth. I mean, that's partially what prompted me going more early pools lately. It's been happening a lot more. I mean, especially once people started, around the time of GSL 2, when people started seeing, all these pylon blocks. Because, I mean, obviously the typical trend is Korea does something, then everybody in North America starts doing it like a week or 2 later.
Yeah.
So, like, you watched like GSL 2, for instance, and you started seeing people doing pylon block and stuff, and so it's like, okay, so I'm going on ladder, and like the first week that stuff starts happening, like you only see it every once in a while, but then like after like 2 weeks or something like that, almost every Terran's going to try and drop an eBay there for a while, and every Protoss is going to try and drop a pylon there. Obviously Terran have stopped doing that because now the fad's becoming that 2 racks nonsense.
Yeah.
But the Protoss obviously are still doing it a lot. Unless it's like a really big map, like Lost Temple or something.
Yeah. All right. So here's an example of Rhett dealing perfectly with getting pylon blocked, and actually his build there I think is great even if you're not getting pylon block. I think it's very smooth. It's very well thought out. Not to the mid game, but just stop it at around 25 supply, let's say. I also noticed in your reply you said you were timing your builds against your own buildings. Is that right?
Yeah, I wasn't using like game timing or food necessarily. I was typically, I mean, like in the early game, you're obviously always looking at food.
Yeah.
Because you want to drop the early stuff based on food counts, assuming you can. Like, there's not a reason why you have to do something else. But after I got my food down, like I was tending to be more like, okay, like once I get past that early game where you get that initial hatch, you get the the initial expand, you get your pull down, you get your all that good crap going, and you get your queens up and stuff. I was starting to time the other aspects once I get past that beginning build stage more towards like, okay, my goal for this game is I want to get, mutas out maybe as quickly as possible. So when I hit 100 gas by leaving a drone in, I'm going to get my layer. And then, okay, if I'm playing Terran, I know I'm going to need a bandling nest around 7 to 8 minutes. So somewhere around by the time my layer pops, probably, I'm going to need the bandling nest.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and that's absolutely correct. That's called relative timing. That's exactly what you want to be doing, and it's great that you're already doing that. You're way ahead of the game. One thing you want to be doing is... Oh, sorry, I cut out for a second there.
It's cool.
One thing that you also want to be doing is you want to be timing what you get versus what you know your opponent can get. And that's another application of relative timing, and we'll go into that later. Can you please accept these replays I've sent you?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I was creating a new file to save them into.
Gotcha.
I just grabbed them both.
Yeah, alright, great. Yeah, so it's great that you're doing that, and it'll help me a lot when I'm describing.
Alright, we're good now, though.
Okay, here's one more replay I'm going to send you. And that's going to be all the material. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch, let's watch replays 2 and 3. We'll get to 1 later. So the second and third one I sent you. And I'm going to describe to you what you want to be doing in the build.
Sure.
And while you're watching someone else do it, and then we're going to jump into a game with an AI, and I'm going to be describing to you what you should be doing while you're actually doing it. And then that'll just get it in your brain, that way you can evaluate your live replays against that. Okay, let's
Which
get
one
that
do you want me
loaded
to
up.
load first?
Red against Genro on Lost Temple.
Sounds good.
Off of BattleNet, so.
Yeah. Alright,
so you in the game now?
I'm on 2 seconds right now.
Oh, you paused?
Yeah.
Okay, let's watch this on ×2. Alright, 3, 2, 1, play. Okay, so what Rhett's going to be doing here is a 15 hatchery, 15 pool.
Alright.
That is what I do in Zerg vs. Terran. For a while, I was having a lot of trouble holding off early bunkers, early marine pressure, one base all in marine marauder things, but I actually ironed that out with a friend and practiced them.
Have you, in regards to that, have you had to try and hold that against those new SCV rushes yet? Just out of curiosity.
Absolutely. Me and my friend spent a few hours last week, actually, a Terran training partner, like I was just saying, working out how to deal with that.
Yeah, because I generally take what Artosis says with a grain of salt. He's like, oh, you're gonna die. It's like, yeah, you're just vain and
insane.
Old grumpy man.
Yeah. Okay, so we're noticing he hasn't scouted. I think this is dangerous because part of what I found was that you have to scout that early gas. If you don't see it, you really have to change what you're doing.
Right.
Because, they're either fast expanding, so you look for that, or you don't see it, and it's like, oh, fuck, there's a bunch of Marines coming up soon. So, this drone seems late to me. He actually doesn't get a chance to look at see if the gas has been taken, but,
Yeah, because he gets chased off by the Marines.